In an interview on the latest episode of the VGC podcast, Geoff Keighley was asked how he felt about his reputation in some corners of the internet as the E3 killer. Keighley said, "I think E3 sort of killed itself in a way. I understand why people say that Summer Games Fest killed E3, but I think if anything, we created Summer Games Fest, and I built Summer Games Fest because I saw the wheels falling off the wagon of E3. As someone who loves that time of the year, for 2 decades, E3 was a part of my life since I was a 15-year-old kid. From the first E3 in 1995, I went to every show. I loved it, and it defined my summer." He later added, "It was so exciting to me, and it was heartbreaking to see that start to fall apart. I think they had a relevancy problem, and then they also had a participation problem over the final years. So yeah, I think the question is, if we didn't do Summer Game Fest, what would happen? I think things would have just kind of really splintered apart this summer." So I'll start by saying I think one thing to get out of the way is, like, obviously Geoff Keighley is making a comment on E3 where he stands at a place to benefit, right? Like, he is Summer Games Fest, right? So like
he's sprinkling on that. Yeah.
Whether he means good or bad, he stands to gain from this whole situation. So moving that out of the way and acknowledging that, I do think that E3's relevance was on a downhill slope. I think as early as Nintendo saying, "We don't need you guys anymore, we're doing directs." That was a big statement right there. Like, not only Nintendo is one of the big three, but like Nintendo was there before Xbox was there, and obviously, I mean, they might have, say 95, I guess Sony would have been there from the beginning as well, but like having a big player like Nintendo drop out, as we further went into digital and streaming and YouTube and that kind of stuff, I think the writing was on the wall for that. Obviously, COVID accelerated it, but to give Geoff Keighley the benefit of the doubt, I do think this would have happened to E3 eventually no matter what, and if there was no one there ready to pick up the pieces, it might have just been more scattershot, scatterbrained across summertime for announcements. But I'd have to guess if Geoff Keighley didn't get on it, some other company or entity would have, so he's just the guy that chose to do it. And Geoff Keighley, he's good at this stuff, right? I mean, the Game Awards are great. Summer Games Fest has been pretty good. I'm not upset about it. I mean, obviously I didn't want E3 to die, but I also understand how it's kind of gone by the wayside, and I'm okay with this, honestly. And the directs, like the digital directs, are fun from all three conferences. What do you think, Joe?
Well, as I was sort of doing on the video and also saying, I do think this is Geoff Keighley. I mean, he is the poster child of the sort of gaming industry. I mean, he's kind of the figurehead in a lot of ways. He's kind of the representative of everything that this industry kind of stands for right now, for better and for worse, but mostly for better. I would say like 95% for better. He's a really good like ambassador for it, and he has been since the VGCs, really. But I do think he is kicking the dirt a little bit on the coffin.
Right.
But saying
that, you did it to yourself. You did it to yourself.
Exactly. They did it to themselves. I mean, the thing with it is that I just think in general it was just getting too expensive to take all your games and your showcase and everything, you know, to what you call it, to E3, and it just wasn't he wasn't feasible, it wasn't valuable enough, and on top of that, it just felt a little bit hollow. Like, it started to feel a little bit hollow, especially from a gamer standpoint. Like, it's good for it was good for a long time for the companies, it was good for the investors and all those different things. But I think things like PAX and stuff have quite a big hand in terms of not necessarily killing E3, but I would say at least just taking away that participation kind of side of it and going, well, you don't have this anymore, we have it. You know, I have buddies over in I have one buddy in Massachusetts who goes every year to PAX. And every year he goes, he says it's absolutely phenomenal. I don't think he's ever been to E3, as far as I'm aware, because it just doesn't interest him. And PAX is
that's just... There just continue to be other ways to show off your games and release your games, between stuff like PAX and other venues, just general websites, Twitch, you know, YouTube content creators, like... There's so many ways to get it out there. It's like you said when you started off, what is the need to like spend all this money and time to set up here? Also, to have E3 dictate when you need to have your teams make their vertical slice to be put out in that way. Now you can just kind of have it all under your own control. It's less of a burden. And I mean, E3, maybe it could have adapted if it had got ahead of it, but it definitely, it was not ahead of it. And then, like I said, COVID completely killed it.
I think E3 rested on the laurels of its history for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it just didn't adapt in any way. And this is the thing. Some things can do that. You know, some showcases can do that. I mean, but the problem is E3 just didn't. They didn't try. They didn't really push for anything.
They were used to being the only source.
Exactly.
They were for a long time. You know?
And the thing is, as soon as sort of PlayStation, especially when PlayStation withdrew, it was a big hit. It was a massive hit. I think as much as Nintendo was a massive thing there, I think that like PlayStation being there was kind of like, again, PlayStation, I think outwardly, in terms of cinematic presentation, in terms of like sort of premiere and stuff like that, the things they showed on those big screens, again, it could be my fanboyism coming through, I don't know, but what they showed was always something that, at least to the outside perspective, must have seemed like, wow. Like, seeing the new God of War, seeing The Last of Us, seeing, you know, all that stuff on the big screen with all those people in that auditorium, in that big, big place, it must have been massive. So when Sony came out, it was a bit like, ooh, that's not good. And then to top that off, you have things like the journalistic leaks that happened, where all their contact details leaked shortly before, I think, 2021's E3. That wasn't good from a PR perspective at all. And that was near the end of kind of when, because during that time, COVID, you know? And COVID was a big deal when it came to kind of killing off people coming to that place in general. And all events was going down the, you know, the proverbial toilet. And so you have COVID, you have the leaks of sort of all the journalistic, you know, sort of people in the industry, and then on top of that you have all of the, you know, sort of companies pulling out because the money is just not worth it. For, I mean, they spend multi-million dollars doing that, you know.
And who wants to buy tickets to E3 when you know you're not going to see your God of War Ragnarok, you're not going to see your Tears of the Kingdoms, like those are the big ticket items, you know.
Well, that's the thing. So like, even though you've got PAX and you've got all those different things, the problem is like they're very different sort of demographics. So you have like, when you go to PAX, you go for the smaller games, so you're closer to the developers. It's more of a sort of, I don't know, in this country it's like the UK Games Expo is like something that's big, which is more board games and stuff, but it's more close knit. It's more sort of, how would you say, comforting in some ways to like really get hands-on with a lot of the games. E3 didn't provide that very much. And the thing is, like you said, if you take away those big games, what have you got? Because that's what people are there for. Yeah. You know, otherwise they just go PAX.
It's a lot of trouble to travel and spend the money for you not to get Sony's content, not to get Nintendo's content, eventually Microsoft's content. It just became irrelevant. It's unfortunate, but it is funny to have the big guy making a comment on this be Geoff Keighley himself.
And I think here's the thing, like, I just like Geoff when he says for 2 decades E3 was part of my life since I was 15 years old. I'm 24 now. I used to watch E3 like when I was from the age of like 12 or something, 12, 13. As soon as I knew it was a thing, I used to watch it, and I used to love it. When E3 was getting closed down, I was one of like the biggest ones that was bummed out. I'm still bummed out because there's nothing like seeing. I never obviously went to E3 because it's obviously I'm across the pond. I'm in England. It's too far for that. When I was younger, especially, and the thing with it is seeing all those people getting really excited, really passionate for things like the God of War releases and Halo's announcements, and seeing them yell out, and you can hear the crowd, the passion coming from all that. As much as I love these new directs, as much as I love these like sort of proper, straight to the point, 1 hour blast through the trailers like the recent show, it's not the same. It's not the same. As much as I respect it, and I think it's good that they're blasting them out one at a time, machine gun style, it ain't the same. And I do miss it. But to Geoff Keighley's credit, I think Summer Games Fest is very good. I think the whole thing is very well orchestrated. I think this whole like on-demand like watching and trying to find the best time zones for everyone, even though not everyone can be catered for just because of how it is really good. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy with what we have with Summer Games Fest as it is now. I never got to go to E3 either, but I mean, just growing up watching E3 and then having like, G4, Tech TV and stuff, like doing the commentating on it and having all these different websites, IGN and everyone post their stuff, and stuff like seeing like a Halo 3 announcement trailer, like that kind of stuff was always going to hit bigger at those type of things. But I think that's just where we're at now. I think it's just like, how much I love physical games, but I pretty much go digital now, right? It's like as cool as this thing was, we've outlived it. We've outgrown it. You know what I mean? Like, games are just going to mostly be digital now. Even if you can get it physically, you're probably going to have to get patches and whatnot.
Well, it's like Alan Wake 2. Alan Wake 2.
On a disc.
Yeah, when Alan Wake 2 was announced that it was digital only, I was kind of annoyed. I'm still am. Like,
it is. It's annoying. And you can have your copy of the first game, but there's no way to have a copy of the second.
Yes, that's going to bug me. But it's how it is. It's the new era, and it's one of those things where it's kind of a sink or swim thing, They can maximize their profits, with the sort of discs and the boxes and stuff. They don't have to mess with that. They already got rid of manuals. All that's gone, But it's the whole thing of gaming is becoming more digitalized. It's becoming more accessible. But because of that, it's becoming more digitalized and less in person. So a lot of the old heads, a lot of the classic gamers, not even necessarily me, 'cause I wouldn't even necessarily consider myself an old head. They're going to feel that. E3 is just one example of that. And I want to bring it back to kind of what you said about the competition. Even though Summit Games Fest came along, I kind of agree. I don't think that Geoff Keighley can take full responsibility for just killing off E3. I think that Summer Games Fest really came along towards the end of E3's life cycle. Yeah. And the thing with it is that it was almost like, that meme where it's like, do something and he's poking? Do something, E3, do something.
He was like the pillow that came in for everyone to rest on after E3 had been dropping the ball,
Yeah, it was like, do something, E3, come on, come back. And then they tried, and it was just like, no, like, this ain't it, And I genuinely don't think Geoff can really take the full responsibility of, I think E3 killed E3. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So
he was all too ready to pick up the pieces, I think is what it was.
Yeah. I think he steps up at the perfect time. I don't sort of hold a grudge or whatever for him because he's...
And I like Geoff Keighley.
Yeah, definitely. So,
He's a cool guy.